Victoria Capere, and you're watching Mission Nonprofit. Each month, we connect with local organizations and agencies that are making a positive impact in our communities. We've invited Graeme Sackrison from the Lacey Makerspace to talk about this new organization. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, tell me, what's the mission of the Makerspace?
I'll have to give it a little history.
Okay.
At a school directors conference, Boeing had a breakout session, and in it they described how their workforce was aging out and the new people coming in lacked hands-on skills. And so coming back from that, we pulled together half a dozen or so people and said, are we experiencing the same thing in other businesses, other industries? And the answer was yes. And so that formed the basis for saying, could we have a makerspace that would provide skill upgrades for a variety of people? And so that was the genesis of it. Our mission is to provide that opportunity for the public to enhance skills, whether it's young people just out of high school, because you can't go back and relearn some skills. We're working with the Veterans Hub. There are people transitioning from the military who have need for skill upgrades. There are also therapeutic values of working on projects and with people that are doing similar things. We have a strong interest in entrepreneurship. Is somebody interested in making a prototype of a product they want to market? And lastly, but not diminishing them, also hobbyists that just want to work in a workshop and have fun.
So it sounds like there's lots of connections between workforce development, worker retraining, and that STEM education piece.
Yes, all of those are components and are reflected somewhat in our executive committee that we have for Makerspace. We have representatives from the Economic Development Council, St. Martin's Engineering, St. Martin's Business, the City of Lacey, South Puget Sound Community College, North Thurston Public Schools. So there's a pulling together, a converging of similar interests in the project.
So lots of community partnerships,
Yep.
Lots of interest in this thing, but people that are watching may not even know what a makerspace is. So can you tell us?
Well, I'll give it a shot. Makerspace is essentially a workshop that's open to the public. Metal shop, wood shop, 3D printing, laser cutting and engraving, welding, and they usually operate somewhat like an athletic club. You pay a monthly fee and you have access to the equipment to do whatever projects you want. And that is essentially what a makerspace is, a public workshop open to the public.
So how did you get involved personally with creating this organization?
Well, I was the guy at the school directors conference, and when I heard Boeing talk about their problems, I came back and talked to some older teachers who were working in career tech education, and I talked to businesses. And so then I pulled together this group and said, let's see if we can make this happen. And it's moving forward.
So where are we at with this? You've mentioned a lot of community partners. You mentioned St. Martin's a few times.
Okay. Organizationally, we're a project under the Thurston Economic Development Council. They've thought this was probably a good idea for some time. We operate under their 501c3, so donations and sponsorships are tax deductible, and they are providing in-kind fiscal and human resources and some planning support. The City of Lacey and St. Martin's University got together and came up with an arrangement that gives us a facility on St. Martin's campus. It's called Zavrel Hall. We will have about 4,500 square feet. ADA accessible restrooms, classroom, dedicated welding room, workshop areas. So I was sort of the genesis of at least pulling this together. Now we're looking at fundraising for equipment because an empty workshop is not a particularly good one. But anyhow, that's where we are.
Was inspiration drawn from other maker spaces or other models? Since you haven't opened the doors yet,
Right.
what is that vision for the future?
Well, I'd had, and all of us had had some experience with Fab Lab Tacoma and how they operate with the University of Washington Tacoma campus. We, in fact, took a couple of field trips up to Fab Lab to see what they were doing and to talk with them. And they are now assisting us in reviewing our plan and talking to us about management and those kinds of things. There isn't much between Fab Lab Tacoma and Portland. So there aren't a lot you can go visit immediately. Now there are some north, Auburn, Seattle, Bellingham, but it's still a sort of a unique situation.
And part of that's going to make Thurston County a lot more vibrant and interesting by bringing those local startup entrepreneurs into the area?
We think it will, and that's been, as I indicated, we have this sort of hierarchy of goals, and clearly the Economic Development Council in the city of Lacey would like to see innovative businesses settle in this general area. St. Martin's sees it as a way to support some of their efforts in their engineering department, in their business department, in their business school. The students just recently wrote a business plan for us. So there are advantages for just about everybody to participate.
And so tell us how the community can get involved. You mentioned some fundraising efforts. There might be some work on the ground that folks can do.
Both of those are true. We are doing a fundraising effort. We need to raise about $100,000. We're looking at some larger potential sponsors. We've raised about $153,000 so far, and we need another 100. We're also looking at smaller local businesses that might be interested in having a smaller sponsorship, but to their benefit, getting advertising value out of participating. In terms, I think as we get closer to opening and we start building workbenches and cleaning the place up and doing those kinds of things, I think there will be volunteer opportunities. We've had booth space at several public events. We'll be at the July 3 fireworks in Lacey, and we have a mailing list of about 125 people who've signed up and been interested. If you go to our website, you can say there's a sign up and I want to be interested in what you're doing, and then we'll put you in the mailing list and keep you advised of what's going on.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Well, I know, the passion about this project is really coming through. Can you tell us, what's your personal interest in this? What is driving your participation?
Well, I've always been a guy who liked to make things. I was a builder of small boats. I've had several cars that I've customized. In fact, I have, excuse me, a 34 Hudson coupe in my garage that I'm so far behind in getting it done. But anyway, those kinds of creative things are interesting. The other thing is that a project like this that has benefit to the community makes me and other people feel good. And that's not an ego thing, that's simply that there's some satisfaction in moving the community forward, whether it's through charitable efforts or a makerspace or whatever. So that's my interest.
And just think, once you've got that 3D printer going, if some plastic part goes out on that coupe, you could print it and pop it right in?
That, in fact, that has been done. I can think of at least one collector who demonstrated using a laser coding machine that would record the piece that was going to be duplicated, then 3D printed it, painted it to match, and put it on the car. So yeah, there are a lot of opportunities for that.
So speaking of those opportunities, we talked a little before about exciting potentials for this technology. Could you share some of those maybe that you've seen or been party to?
Well, one of the things that I find interesting is that there's an opportunity to make new versions of existing products, and I'll have to explain that a little bit. I was talking about a medical device that was fairly expensive, and community villages in Africa were having a hard time paying for it. And a young woman recognized that, heard about the problem, and set out and wound up making one that instead of $1,000 did 90% of the work for about $7 in a 3D printed device. There have been people who've created innovative wheelchairs for disabled small children, toddlers and barely above. So there are lots of opportunities for people to say, here's a problem. Now, how can I address that with this skill set and this equipment? And I think that people are imaginative and there's a lot of opportunity.
And we're sitting here in a television studio, and I think it would just be fantastic to see this technology used to create prosthetics.
Yes.
I know that it has been done before, but to bring it to the indie film community would be pretty fantastic.
That would be. And the prosthetics are an interesting adaptation of 3D printing. And there was a film on TV just a day or so ago of a young girl that was born without one arm, or without from about here down, throwing out a first pitch at a baseball game with her prosthetic. So there's the ability to really change people's lives for the better.
That's fantastic. So you haven't taken possession of the building yet?
No.
So do you have a timeline that you can share?
Yes, we do, and it's sort of the sooner the better, excuse me. But it's also a function of the fundraising for the equipment. So we would like to be in place, open by the end of the year.
Great.
That's our target.
So with just a few minutes left, do you have any
Sure.
campaigns or events coming up that you could share related to fundraising or just raising awareness?
We're exploring a variety of different fundraising areas. We've got somebody new who's volunteering to help with some new ideas about sort of a GoFundMe approach to do that. We're looking at some events. We will be at the fireworks on July 3rd. So right now we're just putting together this plan and getting ready to roll it out, working with St. Martin's and their grant writing people as well as the city and then the EDC.
Great. Well, I really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be here.
Great. That's all we have for you. You can see Mission Nonprofit on Channel 77 on Sundays at 4:30 p.m., Tuesdays at 7 p.m., Thursdays at 7:30 p.m., and Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. You can also catch us online at tcmedia.org. See you next time.